The Earth's temperature has reached a critical point that scientists have long warned could have devastating consequences for the planet and its ecosystems, according to data shared by a leading climate scientist. Preliminary data from the Copernicus Climate Change Service, shared by Samantha Burgess, shows that the global average temperature last Friday was more than 2 degrees Celsius hotter than pre-industrial levels. While this breach was temporary, it is a clear indication that the planet is steadily getting hotter and moving towards a situation where reversing the impacts of the climate crisis will be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Burgess stated that this was the first day when global temperatures exceeded 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, reaching 2.06 degrees Celsius. She also noted that on that day, global temperatures averaged 1.17 degrees above the levels from 1991 to 2020, making it the warmest November 17 on record. However, when compared to pre-industrial times, the temperature was 2.06 degrees warmer. This breach of the 2-degree threshold occurred just 2 weeks before the UN COP28 climate conference in Dubai, where countries will assess their progress towards the Paris Climate Agreement's goal of limiting global warming to 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, with an ambition of limiting it to 1.5 degrees. Burgess clarified that this single day above 2 degrees does not mean that the Paris Agreement has been violated. But it highlights how close we are to reaching those internationally agreed limits. She also warned that we can expect to see more frequent occurrences of 1.5 degree and 2 degree days in the future. It is important to note that the data from Copernicus is preliminary and will require further confirmation through real-life observations over the next few weeks. However, the world is already on track to exceed 1.5 degrees of warming on a long-term basis in the coming years, which scientists warn will make it increasingly challenging for humans and ecosystems to adapt. A recent UN report revealed that even if countries fulfill their current emissions reduction commitments, the world is still projected to experience between 2.5 and 2.9 degrees of warming by the end of the century. Every fraction of a degree above the 1.5 degree threshold worsens the impacts, putting more people at risk of extreme weather events and increasing the likelihood of irreversible tipping points, such as the collapse of polar ice sheets and the mass death of coral reefs. Richard Allen, a climate science professor at the University of Reading, described this breach as a canary in the coal mine that emphasizes the urgency of addressing greenhouse gas emissions. He also noted that it was expected for single days to surpass 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels before the actual long-term breach of the 2-degree target occurs. This data comes after the hottest 12 months on record and a year filled with extreme weather events, all intensified by the climate crisis. Scientists are increasingly alarmed as the actual temperatures exceed their predictions. Recent reports assessing the state of the Earth's climate and human efforts to combat it have shown that the planet is heading towards dangerous levels of warming, with insufficient measures to mitigate or adapt to its impacts. A UN report revealed that according to countries' climate plans, planet heating pollution in 2030 will still be 9% higher than it was in 2010. This is far from the 45% decrease in emissions by the end of this decade that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change states is necessary to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Additionally, another UN report found that countries are planning to exceed the fossil fuel production limit that would keep global heating in check. By 2030, they aim to produce more than double the limit required to cap warming at 1.5 degrees. These findings highlight the urgent need for stronger action to combat climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Without significant efforts to address this crisis, the planet will continue to face increasingly severe consequences.